They pour hot coffee on a black waitress. Not knowing the Korean Mafia boss watching was her man. The cup shattered before the pain arrived. Ceramic hit the diner floor with a sharp, violent crack, loud enough to slice through the low hum of late-night conversation. For half a second, Maya Johnson didn't understand what had happened. Her mind caught fragments out of order, the hiss of steam, the bitter smell of coffee, someone laughing, before he tore into her leg and stole the air from her lungs. She screamed. The sound startled her almost as much as the pain itself. Maya had trained herself not to make noise, not to draw attention. But the burn was unforgiving, spreading fast, soaking through her thin black uniform like liquid fire. "Oh, damn," someone muttered. "Watch where you're going," a man snapped. Maya staggered backward, her tray clattering uselessly to the tile floor. Coffee dripped from the hem of her apron, dark and steaming. Her hand shook as she tried to brush it away, but every touch only spread the heat, sending fresh agony up her leg. I'm sorry," she said automatically. The words came out without thought. Apology had become reflex, muscle memory carved into her over years of surviving service work. Sorry for being in the way. Sorry for existing too close to someone who thought they mattered more. Laughter followed. Not from the whole diner. Just one place. Booth 7. 3 men sat there, relaxed, sprawling like the world belonged to them. Their jackets were expensive, their shoes spotless. The kind of men who treated places like this diner as a joke, something ironic to post about later. One of them leaned back, a slow grin spreading across his face. "Relax," he said. "It's just coffee. Just coffee." Maya's leg throbbed violently now, the skin already tightening, blistering beneath the fabric. Tears burned her eyes, but she forced them back. Crying never helped. Crying only invited more cruelty. "I'll get towels," she murmured, already turning away. She limped toward the back, every step sending a sharp pulse of pain through her body. No one stopped her. Mrs. Alvarez stood frozen behind the counter, one hand pressed to her mouth. The cook stared through the service window, spatula suspended midair. The diner had gone quiet in that awful way public spaces do when something ugly happens. Everyone watching, no one intervening. Then, "Sit down." The voice wasn't loud, but it carried. The laughter from booth 7 died mid-breath. Maya froze, her foot hovering above the tile. She turned slowly. A man stood near the far corner of the diner, rising from his seat with deliberate calm. He was tall, dressed in a dark coat that looked tailored to perfection, wildly out of place among chip tables and flickering lights. His hair was neatly cut, his posture straight, his expression unreadable. But something shifted in the room. The air felt heavier, pressurized, like the moment before a storm breaks. "Who the hell are you?" one of the men scoffed, trying to laugh it off. The stranger didn't answer right away. His eyes moved past them. They found Maya. Her heart slammed into her ribs. There was no confusion in his gaze, no surprise, only immediate concern, sharp and unmistakable, like someone reaching out to steady her before she fell. "Maya," he said quietly. Her breath caught. "Jean." Hearing her name on his lips, "Here, now," felt unreal. He took a step toward her, then stopped abruptly when his eyes dropped to her leg. The red stain spreading across her uniform. The way she trembled, trying not to collapse. Something changed in him. It wasn't explosive. It wasn't loud. It was colder than that. When Gene Park turned back toward the men in booth 7, the warmth in his eyes vanished, replaced by something precise and dangerous. "You spilled coffee on her," he said evenly. "So," the man replied, shrugging. She should have been more careful. Gene tilted his head slightly, studying him the way someone studied a problem they already knew how to solve. "You will apologize," he said. The men laughed again, though it sounded forced this time. "And if we don't," one of them challenged, standing up just enough to puff out his chest. Gene smiled faintly. It didn't reach his eyes. "I'm not threatening you," he said. "I'm giving you a chance." Maya felt her pulse pounding in her ears. She knew that smile. She had only seen it once before, months ago, in a parking garage when a man twice Jin's size had raised his voice at him. That man had apologized too. Her stomach dropped. The men in booth 7 had no idea who they were dealing with. Mrs. Alvarez finally moved, fumbling for the phone. "Ambulance," she whispered, already dialing. Jin crossed the diner in 3 smooth steps and knelt in front of Maya, careful not to touch her leg. His hands hovered, controlled, waiting. "May I?" he asked softly. She nodded. His fingers adjusted the edge of her apron, lifting the fabric just enough to see the damage. His jaw tightened. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "For what?" she whispered. "For letting my world touch yours." Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Behind them, the men were silent now, fear creeping into their faces as Gene straightened to his full height. "You will stay," he said to them calmly, "until authorities arrive." "You can't," one started. Gene looked at him. The man stopped talking. Maya watched it all through a haze of pain and adrenaline. Gene was still Gene, the man who brought her tea when she worked late, who listened when she talked about her mother, who never touched her without asking. But he was also this: powerful, controlled, dangerous. As the paramedics rushed in, Gene stayed beside her, his presence a steady anchor. When they lifted her onto the stretcher, panic flared in her chest. "Don't disappear," she said, gripping his sleeve. He leaned closer, his voice low and certain. "I won't," he promised. But even as the doors closed and the sirens screamed to life, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that everything had already changed. Because once you see the truth about someone, you can never unsee it. The hospital lights hummed softly above Maya's head. She lay on a narrow bed, her leg elevated and wrapped in thick white bandages that smelled faintly of antiseptic. The pain had dulled into a deep, persistent ache. Manageable, the doctor said. 2nd-degree burns. No permanent damage as she followed instructions. She nodded when they spoke, thanked them when they left, and stared at the ceiling afterward, listening to the steady rhythm of machines that reminded her she was still here. Gene sat beside her. He hadn't moved since they arrived. His coat lay folded over the back of the chair, sleeves rolled to his forearms. A faint bruise darkened his knuckles, fresh, evidence of restraint rather than action. "You don't have to stay," Maya said quietly. "Yes," he replied without hesitation. "I do." She turned her head slightly to look at him. His face was calm, but she knew him well enough now to see the tension beneath it. The tight jaw, the stillness that meant control was being actively maintained. "You scared them," she said. "They deserved it," he answered. "That's not what I meant." He met her gaze then. "I know." Silence stretched between them, heavy with everything they had avoided talking about for months. "I never told anyone about you," Maya said suddenly. Jin's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. "I know. It wasn't because I was ashamed," she rushed to explain. "It was because I was afraid of what people would think, of what would happen if they knew. And now they know," he said softly. She exhaled. "Now I know." The image of him standing in the diner, controlled, commanding, terrifying, replayed in her mind. "I saw something tonight," she said. "Something you tried to keep from me." Gene leaned back slightly, giving her space. "You always knew," he said. "You just chose not to look directly at it." She swallowed. Maybe. The truth was, she had always felt it, in the way people moved aside for him, without realizing why, in the way conversations ended when he entered a room, in the way his voice never needed to rise. "I didn't want your world touching mine," she whispered. "And I tried to keep it away," he said. "That's why I stayed at a distance. Why I didn't walk you home. Why I never came to your work. Until tonight." "Yes." She turned her face away, blinking back tears. "I'm so tired, Gene. I know. I'm tired being careful, of shrinking, of apologizing for things that aren't my fault." He stood and moved closer, stopping beside her bed. "Maya," he said gently, "you didn't do anything wrong." She laughed bitterly. "Tell that to the world." He reached out, hesitated, then rested his hand lightly on the edge of the bed near her arm, not touching her, waiting. I grew up learning how to disappear too, he said quietly. That surprised her. She looked at him. In Seoul, he continued, my family lived in the margins. Power wasn't something we had. It was something that hurt us. I learned early that if you didn't claim space, someone else would take it from you. So you became someone no one could take from, she said. Yes. She studied his face, seeing not just a man who frightened others, but the boy who had learned fear first. When I met you, he said, you were already strong. You just didn't know it. She shook her head. Strong people don't end up burned on diner floors. They do, he said. They just don't always have witnesses. The door opened quietly. A nurse peeked in. Ms. Johnson, you're good to be discharged in about 30 minutes. Maya nodded. Thank you. When the door closed, the weight returned. I don't want to go home alone, she admitted. Jean didn't hesitate. You won't. She hesitated. I'm not asking you to move in. I know. Tonight was too much. He nodded. I'll stay. Relief washed through her, immediate and overwhelming. They left the hospital together under the pale glow of streetlights. Jean drove slowly, carefully, like the city itself had become fragile. Her apartment felt smaller than usual when they entered, every sound amplified. Jean moved through the space with quiet respect, taking in the mismatched furniture, the thrift store rug, the stack of medical bills on the counter. You don't have to pretend here, she said softly. I'm not, he replied. She settled onto the couch, wincing slightly as she adjusted her leg. Jean brought her water, pain medication, and a blanket without being asked. You've done this before, she said. Caring for people, he asked. She nodded. Yes, he said, but not like this. He sat beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth, but not touching. Always careful. Jean, she said after a moment, why did you really stay away from my work? He exhaled slowly. Because people watch me, even when I don't see them. And when they learn what I care about, they test it. Her stomach tightened. So, tonight was inevitable, he said. I just hoped it wouldn't be you. Fear crept into her chest. Am I in danger now? He didn't lie. Yes. The word landed hard. But, he added, you're not alone. She stared at her hands. That's what scares me. I know, he said, because being seen is always risk. She turned to face him. I don't want violence. I don't want revenge. Then we won't do that, he said immediately. You say that like you have options. I do. She searched his face. Promise me something. Anything. Whatever happens next, she said, voice steady despite the fear. I decide how far this goes. He held her gaze. Agreed. Something unspoken passed between them. A line drawn, a new foundation laid. She leaned back against the couch, exhaustion finally pulling at her. Stay, she murmured. I am, he replied. As sleep claimed her, Maya realized something she hadn't allowed herself to think before. She wasn't just afraid of Jin's world. She was afraid of how safe she felt with him in it. Maya woke to the sound of rain tapping against her windows. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then pain bloomed in her leg, dull and insistent, grounding her back in her body. She inhaled sharply and stared at the ceiling, listening to the soft rhythm of the city waking up around her. She wasn't alone. Jean sat in the chair across the room, his head bowed slightly as he spoke quietly into his phone. His voice was low, measured, the way it always was when he was carefully controlling something dangerous. Yes, he said, I understand. A pause. No, not yet. Maya shifted, the blanket rustling. Jean looked up instantly, ending the call. You're awake, he said. She nodded. How long have you been sitting there? Long enough, he replied. The rain cast moving shadows across his face. In the soft morning light, he looked different, less intimidating, more human, the sharp edges softened by fatigue. Did you sleep? She asked. He smiled faintly. Enough. She knew that was a lie. He helped her sit up, careful, attentive, asking permission with every movement. When he handed her a glass of water, their fingers brushed, and the contact sent a strange, grounding warmth through her chest. "What happens now?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. "There are people who noticed what happened last night," he said finally. "Not just the men who did it. Others." Her stomach tightened. "Because of you." "Yes." She swallowed. "And because of me." "Yes." The honesty scared her more than any attempt at reassurance would have. Before she could speak again, a knock echoed through the apartment. Sharp, precise, unmistakably intentional. Maya froze. Gene was already on his feet, positioning himself between her and the door with instinctive ease. "Stay here," he said quietly. Her heart hammered. "Who is it?" "Someone I trust," he replied. Then, after a brief hesitation, "Usually." He moved toward the door, every step controlled. Maya watched from the couch, fear curling tight in her chest. The knock came again. Gene opened the door just enough to see who stood outside. A woman stepped in without waiting for an invitation. She was younger than Maya expected, late 20s, maybe early 30s. Her black hair was pulled into a sleek knot at the base of her neck. She wore a tailored gray coat that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent, and her eyes were sharp, observant, missing nothing. "Mr. Park," the woman said with a slight bow of her head. "I apologize for the intrusion." "You shouldn't be here," Gene replied coolly. "I know," she said. Her gaze slid past him and landed on Maya. Maya straightened instinctively, refusing to shrink. "So this is her," the woman said. Maya crossed her arms. "I'm right here." The woman's lips curved slightly. Not a smile, exactly. More like acknowledgement. "Sumin," she said. "I work with Gene." Maya raised an eyebrow. "That makes two of us." Gene exhaled sharply. "Sumin." "It's already happening," Sumin said calmly. "Avoiding it won't change that." Maya looked between them. "Avoiding what?" Sumin turned fully toward her now, her attention focused and deliberate. "People are talking," she said. "The incident at the diner was witnessed, recorded. Someone already tried to sell the footage." Maya's chest tightened. "Sell it to who?" "To anyone who wants leverage," Sumin replied. "And there are many." Jin's jaw clenched. "I told you to handle that quietly." "We are," Sumin said, "but silence doesn't erase curiosity." Maya's pulse roared in her ears. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," Sumin said gently, "you deserve to know what standing beside him means." Gene shot her a warning look. "Enough." "No," Maya said suddenly. "It's fine." Both of them turned to her. "I don't want things decided for me anymore," Maya said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Not by men in booths. Not by systems. Not by people who think power means permission." Sumin studied her carefully. "You're braver than most." Maya shrugged. "I'm tired." Sumin nodded, as if that explained everything. "The men who hurt you," Sumin continued, "are connected to a small group that's been testing boundaries. They didn't know who you were, but now they do." Maya's mouth went dry. "And that's bad." "It can be," Gene said, "unless we stop it early." "How?" Maya asked. Gene hesitated. Sumin answered instead. "By making it clear that touching you comes with consequences." Maya shook her head immediately. "No." The word was sharp, final. Sumin blinked. "No. No violence," Maya said firmly. "No threats. No making me the reason someone ends up hurt." Gene turned toward her, surprise flickering across his face. "You don't get to decide what kind of justice I'm comfortable with," Maya said, meeting his gaze. "If I'm going to be part of this, if this is my life now, then I choose how it handled." The room went very still. Sumin looked between them, something like respect slowly emerging in her expression. "You're asking for restraint," she said. "That's not simple." "Neither is surviving," Maya replied. Gene stepped closer to Maya, his voice low. "You don't owe them anything." "I owe myself," she said. "And I owe you honesty." She looked at him fully now. "I don't want revenge," she said. "I want safety. And I want to keep my soul intact." Gene searched her face, the internal battle visible. Then he nodded. We do this your way, he said. Sue Min inclined her head slightly. Understood. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small card, setting it on the table. If anything feels wrong, she said to Maya, call me, day or night. Maya hesitated, then nodded. Thank you. Sue Min paused at the door. For what it's worth, she added, you're already changing him. After she left, the apartment felt too quiet. Maya let out a shaky breath. That was the lot. Yes, Jean said softly. You could have said no, she added. You didn't have to agree with me. I did, he said, because you were right. She looked at him, surprised. I've spent my life choosing efficiency over mercy, he continued. You remind me there are other forms of strength. Her throat tightened. I'm still scared. He nodded. So am I? She reached for his hand. This time, she didn't hesitate. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing the city clean. But Maya knew the storm wasn't over. It had only shifted. The first threat arrived quietly. Maya didn't notice it at first. She was too focused on walking, on keeping her weight off her injured leg, on counting steps from her apartment door to the curb. The city looked the same as it always had. Cars passed. Someone argued on a phone across the street. A bus hissed to stop. Normal. It wasn't until she reached the end of the block that she realized the black sedan was still there, parked where it hadn't been the day before. Engine idling. Windows dark. Her pulse stuttered. She told herself not to jump to conclusions. Jean had warned her. Fear feeds on imagination. She kept walking, refusing to look back, until a familiar smell of oil and dust from the diner wrapped around her. Inside, Mrs. Alvarez rushed toward her. Baby, what happened to your leg? She asked, eyes wide. Coffee, Maya said lightly. Clumsy moment. Mrs. Alvarez didn't look convinced, but she nodded anyway. You sit today. I'll cover. Maya smiled gratefully and eased into a chair near the counter. 10 minutes later, someone slipped an envelope beneath the door. No name, no stamp, just thick paper. Mrs. Alvarez picked it up, frowning. Mail doesn't usually. Maya's stomach dropped. I'll take it, she said quickly. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a single printed photo. Her, standing outside her apartment the night before. Jean beside her, his face partially turned away, but unmistakable if you knew him. Beneath the photo, 4 words were typed neatly. Be careful who you trust. The room tilted. Maya, Mrs. Alvarez asked. I need air, Maya whispered. She didn't remember standing up. Only the sound of the bell as the diner door swung open, the cold air hitting her face like a slap. She pulled out her phone with shaking fingers. Jean answered on the first ring. Where are you? He asked immediately. The diner, she said. Someone left a photo. Silence. Then I'm coming. No, she said sharply. Don't. Maya, I don't want them thinking I can summon you like a weapon, she said. I need to understand this. Another pause. Longer this time. All right, he said finally. But you're not walking home alone. She swallowed. Okay. The rest of her shift crawled by. Every sound made her flinch. Every unfamiliar face felt like a threat. When the sun dipped low and shadows stretched across the street, her nerves were stretched tight as wire. Jean was waiting across the road when she closed the diner. Not obvious, not close, just present. She felt it instantly, the strange calm his presence brought. Even now, he walked beside her, careful to match her pace. You should have told me sooner, he said quietly. I didn't want to panic, she replied. I wanted to be sure. He glanced at her. And now I'm scared, she admitted. They reached her building. Jean scanned the street before unlocking the door. Inside her apartment, Maya finally let herself breathe. She handed him the photo. His jaw tightened. They cross a line, he said. No, she replied firmly. They stepped over one you warned them about. He looked at her then, really looked. You're not shaking, he observed. She realized he was right. Her hands were steady now. I spent my whole life being afraid, she said softly. I don't want fear deciding things for me anymore. He nodded slowly. Then we prepare. That night, Jean stayed. Not close, not intimate. Just there. He slept on the chair again, refusing the couch. Maya watched him from the doorway once, seeing the way even rest never fully claimed him. The second threat came the next day. A man followed her from the pharmacy. She noticed him because Jean had taught her how. Watch reflections. Trust pattern breaks. The man wasn't subtle. He didn't need to be. When she stopped walking, he stopped too. You walk fast for someone hurt, he said casually. Maya turned to face him, heart pounding. Can I help you? She asked. He smiled thinly, just admiring. She took a step back, pulling out her phone. Wrong move, he said quietly. She met his gaze. Wrong woman. She dialed Sumin. The man's expression changed. He stepped back slowly. Have a nice day. He disappeared into the crowd. Maya stood there, shaking now, adrenaline flooding her system. Sumin arrived 10 minutes later. You did the right thing, she said. Maya let out a shaky laugh. I didn't run. You didn't freeze either, Sumin noted. That matters. That evening, Jean didn't hide his anger. They're pushing, he said, seeing how much you'll tolerate. And what happens if I don't? Maya asked. Then they escalate, he replied honestly. She stared at the window, city lights blinking on one by one. I won't disappear, she said suddenly. Jean turned toward her sharply. Maya, I won't quit my job. I won't hide inside. If I do that, they win. You're not weak for protecting yourself, he said. I know, she replied, but I'm not weak for living either. He stepped closer, his voice low. I won't let anything happen to you. She looked up at him. Promise me you won't decide my life without me. He didn't hesitate. I promise. That night, fear didn't leave, but it changed. It sharpened, focused. Maya began to notice things. Patterns. People lingering too long. She learned how to enter rooms with awareness, how to trust her instincts instead of dismissing them. Jean didn't take over. He taught. One evening, as they stood in her kitchen, she caught him watching her. Not like someone guarding something fragile, but like someone witnessing transformation. What? She asked. You're changing, he said quietly. So are you, she replied. A faint smile touched his lips. The next morning, the third threat arrived. Not as a warning, as an invitation. A text message from an unknown number. We should talk. Public place. Tonight, you deserve answers. Maya stared at the screen, heart racing. She didn't delete it. She didn't respond. She turned to Jean. I'm going, she said. His face hardened. No, I'm not going alone, she corrected. But I'm done waiting. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he nodded. All right, he said. Then we do it together. Maya felt fear surge, and beneath it, something stronger. Resolve. The cafe was too bright. Maya noticed at the moment she stepped inside, the way the overhead lights washed everything in artificial warmth, leaving nowhere for shadows to hide. Glass walls faced the street, exposing every table to passing traffic. It was exactly the kind of place the message had suggested. Public, visible, performative. Jean paused beside her at the entrance, scanning the room with the quiet intensity she had come to recognize. Last chance to walk away, he said softly. Maya adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder. Inside it was nothing dramatic. Her phone, her keys, the cards Sumin had given her, and something heavier she couldn't name yet. Resolve, maybe. No, she said. If I keep reacting, they control the rhythm. I want to change it. Jean studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right, he said. I'll be nearby, but not obvious. She met his gaze. Not behind me. A flicker of something like pride crossed his expression. Beside you, he corrected. They chose a table near the window. Maya sat facing the door. Jean took the chair slightly angled away, like any other customer. To anyone watching, they looked like a couple sharing coffee. No tension, no fear, but Maya felt everything. The bell over the door chimed. A man entered alone, mid-40s, neatly dressed, unremarkable in a way that felt intentional. His eyes found Maya immediately. He smiled. Her spine stiffened, but she didn't look away. He approached slowly, hands visible, posture relaxed. "Ms. Johnson," he said politely, "thank you for coming." "You said I deserved answers," Maya replied. "Sit." Jean didn't move. He didn't intervene. That mattered. The man sat across from Maya, folded his hands neatly on the table. "My name is Daniel," he said. "I represent people who prefer discretion." Maya nodded. "I prefer honesty." Daniel chuckled softly. "Fair." He glanced briefly at Jean, then back to Maya. "You become a point of interest." "I didn't ask for that," she replied. "Very few people do," he said. "But interest isn't always a threat." Maya leaned forward slightly. "You sent a man to follow me." Daniel's smile thinned. "I sent someone to assess risk." "And what did you find?" she asked. "That you're not who we expected." Jean shifted slightly. Not threatening, just present. Daniel noticed. "You're braver than most people in your position." "I'm tired of being underestimated," Maya said evenly. Daniel nodded. "Understandable. That's actually why I want to meet." She waited. "The men who hurt you acted without permission," he said. "That was sloppy. Embarrassing." Maya felt anger spark. "They burned me." "Yes," Daniel said. "And they've been disciplined." Her stomach twisted. "That's not my concern." "What is your concern, then?" he asked. She met his gaze. "My life, my job, my safety. I want this to end." Daniel studied her carefully, like a chess player evaluating a move. "You're connected to Mr. Park," he said. "That makes you leverage." Maya inhaled slowly. "No, that makes me human." Silence stretched. Daniel finally nodded. "Very well." He slid an envelope across the table. "Inside is a formal apology," he said. "Medical compensation. And a written assurance that you will not be contacted again by anyone associated with those men." Maya didn't touch it yet. "And what do you want in return?" Daniel smiled faintly. "Nothing." She raised an eyebrow. "That's never true." "You're right," he said. "What I want is distance. No interviews. No lawsuits. No public story." Maya glanced at Jean. He gave a barely perceptible nod. She looked back at Daniel. "I won't lie." "I'm not asking you to," he said. "I'm asking you not to escalate." Maya thought of the diner floor, the burn, the fear. Then she thought of the woman she had been before, quiet, apologetic, invisible. "No," she said calmly. "I won't be silent either." Daniel's smile faltered. "Excuse me." "I won't chase publicity," Maya continued. "But if someone asks me what happened, I'll tell the truth. I won't protect men who hurt me." Jean felt it then, the shift. Daniel leaned back slowly. "That complicates things." "So did pouring hot coffee on a stranger," Maya replied. For a long moment, the only sound was the hiss of the espresso machine behind the counter. Then Daniel stood. "You're not wrong," he said. "But understand something, Ms. Johnson. People like us don't like unpredictability." Maya stood too, then stopped treating people like objects. Their eyes locked. Finally, Daniel nodded once. "You'll receive confirmation by tomorrow." He left without another word. Maya exhaled shakily and sat back down. Jean turned toward her fully now. "You didn't flinch," he said quietly. "I wanted to," she admitted. "I just didn't." He reached across the table, hesitated, then took her hand. "I'm proud of you," he said. The words hit her harder than any threat had. Later that night, back at her apartment, the adrenaline crashed. Maya's hands trembled as she set her bag down. "I didn't know if I could do that," she confessed. "You did," Jean said, "because you chose to." She leaned against the counter, suddenly exhausted. "I don't want to be brave all the time," she whispered. "You don't have to be," he replied. "Not with me." The silence between them shifted, heavy, intimate. She looked at him, really looked. "When you stepped back today," she said, "that mattered. You didn't take over." "I wanted to," he admitted. Every instinct told me to, but you didn't. No, he said, because this was your fight. Her chest tightened. She took a step closer. Then another. Jean didn't move. Can I? She asked softly. His breath caught. Yes. She rested her forehead against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart. He wrapped his arms around her carefully, like she was something precious but strong. For the first time since the diner, Maya felt safe without feeling small. Outside, the city moved on. Inside, something shifted irrevocably. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You handled yourself well. This ends here. Maya stared at the screen, then handed it to Jean. He read it and nodded. It's over. She let out a long breath. Then what happens now? She asked. Jean smiled softly. Now we live. The city didn't change when the danger ended. Traffic still crawled. Sirens still wailed somewhere in the distance. People still rushed past one another with their heads down, absorbed in lives that never brushed against Maya's. But she had changed. Maya noticed it the first morning she returned to work. The diner smelled the same, coffee, grease, cleaning solution, but her body reacted differently now. She didn't flinch when the bell rang. She didn't automatically apologize when someone brushed past her chair. Mrs. Alvarez hugged her tightly. I was worried, she said. So was I, Maya admitted. You look taller, Mrs. Alvarez added, smiling. Maya laughed softly. I feel taller. The burn on her leg still ached, but it no longer defined her movements. She sat when she needed to, asked for help when she wanted. No guilt. Across the street, Jean waited in his car, not watching the door obsessively, not scanning every shadow, just present. That mattered more than protection ever had. That night, when Maya closed the diner, she walked outside alone. Jean didn't rush over. He waited. She crossed the street under her own power, the city lights reflecting in puddles at her feet. You didn't hover, she said as she slid into the passenger seat. You didn't need me to, he replied. They drove in comfortable silence for several blocks. Finally, Maya spoke. What happens when things go quiet for you? Jin's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. They never really do, he said, but this is close. She nodded. Does it scare you? Yes, he admitted, because quiet gives you space to feel. She glanced at him. And you don't like that? I was taught it was dangerous, he said. She thought of the way he slept lightly, of how control wrapped around him like armor. When you chose restraint from me, she said, that cost you something. Yes, he said simply. They stopped at a red light. Neon reflected across his face. Do you resent me for it? She asked. He turned toward her, surprised. No, be honest. He considered. I was afraid I'd lose you if I didn't change. Her chest tightened. You don't have to keep changing to deserve me. That's not why I did it, he said quietly. I changed because I wanted to be someone you could stand beside, not someone you survived. The light turned green. Maya looked out the window, emotions pressing dangerously close to the surface. Back at her apartment, the air felt different, lighter, expectant. They sat on opposite ends of the couch at first, the silence stretching, not awkward, but charged. I've been thinking, Maya said slowly. About us. Jean nodded. Me too. I don't want to be hidden, she continued. And I don't want to be a shield either. You're neither, he said. I want choice, she said. Every day. He met her gaze. Then I choose you. Every day. The simplicity of it undid her. She stood abruptly, pacing once, then stopping in front of him. Tell me something, she said, and don't soften it. He straightened slightly. All right. If your world comes back, she asked, voice steady, if danger follows you again, will you pull away to protect me? He didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched, heavy and honest. No, he said finally. I would ask you what you want. Her breath left her in a shaky exhale. Thank you. He stood too now, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. Maya, he said softly, there's something I need to say. Her heart pounded. Say it. When I saw you on that diner floor, he said, voice tight, something broke open in me. Not anger. Fear. She frowned. Fear. Of losing you, he said. Of realizing too late that I loved you. The word landed gently. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't dramatize it. He simply offered it. Her eyes burned. I've loved you longer than I admitted to myself, he continued, because loving you meant risking something I've always controlled. Maya stepped closer, closing the space between them. I'm not something you manage, she said. I know, he replied. You're something I choose. She lifted her hand, resting it lightly against his chest, feeling his heart beat fast beneath her palm. Then choose me honestly, she whispered. He covered her hand with his own. I am, he said. She leaned in first. The kiss was slow, careful, not consuming, not desperate, just present. When they pulled back, her forehead rested against his. That's all I wanted, she murmured. To be chosen, he asked. To be seen, she corrected. Days passed. No more notes. No more strangers lingering too long. Su Min checked in once, brief and professional. It's settled, she said. Maya believed her. Life resumed, but not the same. Maya applied to nursing school again. Jean attended a charity gala openly, his hand resting lightly at her back, introducing her not as something hidden, but as someone respected. People noticed. They always would. But Maya no longer mistook attention for danger. One evening, weeks later, she stood in the diner after closing, wiping down the counter. Jean waited by the door. You ready? He asked. She nodded. As they stepped outside, the streetlight flickered overhead. For a moment, Maya thought of the burn, the pain, the fear. Then she thought of the woman who had stood across from power and refused to shrink. She took Jin's hand. Whatever comes, she said, we face it like this. Side by side, he replied. They walked into the night together, not untouched by fire, but forged by it. The scar healed slowly. Maya noticed it one morning while getting dressed for work, the light from her bedroom window, falling across her leg at just the right angle. The skin was smooth now, a pale line where angry red had once bloomed. It wasn't beautiful. It wasn't ugly either. It was evidence. She traced it lightly with her fingers, then pulled on her jeans and went about her day. The diner buzzed with its usual rhythm. Cups clinking, orders called out, laughter rising and falling like a tide. Maya moved through it all differently now. She stood straighter. Her voice carried without apology. When a man at the counter snapped his fingers for attention, she met his eyes calmly. I'll be with you in a moment, she said. He blinked, startled, then nodded. Mrs. Alvarez caught her eye from across the room and smiled. That night, Jean waited outside as usual. Not because he needed to, because he wanted to. You don't have to walk me home every time, Maya said lightly as they stepped onto the sidewalk. I know, he replied, but I like walking with you. She glanced at him, amused. You used to hate doing normal things. He smiled faintly. I didn't hate them. I just didn't know how. They walked in comfortable silence, the city humming around them. At a crosswalk, Maya stopped suddenly. What? Jean asked. She turned toward him. Do you ever regret it? Regret what? Stepping back, she said, letting go of control. He considered the question carefully. I regret that it took hurting you for me to understand, he said, but not the choice itself. She nodded. Good. They reached her apartment building. Jean paused at the entrance, as he always did now, giving her space to the side. Come up, she said. Inside, the apartment felt warm and familiar. Maya kicked off her shoes and moved into the kitchen, pulling out 2 mugs. Tea, she asked. Yes, Jean replied. As the kettle heated, Maya leaned against the counter, watching him. You're quieter lately, she said. So are you, he replied. That's different, she said. I'm quieter because I don't feel like I'm bracing for something. He met her gaze. I'm quieter because I'm listening. The kettle clicked off. They sat at the small kitchen table, steam curling between them. I got my acceptance letter today, Maya said suddenly. Jin's eyes widened. Nursing school? She nodded, unable to stop smiling. Part-time program. Evening classes. He reached across the table and took her hand. I'm proud of you. Don't say it like I needed permission, she teased gently. He smiled. I'm proud because you chose yourself. The words settled between them, warm and solid. Later, as they stood at the window, watching rain streak the glass, Maya spoke again. I've been thinking about what you said, she said. About fear. He nodded, encouraging her to continue. I think fear never really goes away, she said. It just stops being the loudest thing in the room. Jean considered that. You make it quieter. So, do you? She replied. Weeks passed. Life grew fuller instead of louder. Maya balanced work and classes, exhaustion mixing with purpose. Jean attended meetings she never asked about and dinners she sometimes joined. He never hit her, never paraded her either. They found their rhythm in ordinary things. Grocery shopping, late-night study sessions, shared silence on the couch. One evening, Jean came home later than usual. Maya looked up from her notes as he set his coat down. Everything okay? She asked. Yes, he said, then paused. No. Her chest tightened, but she stayed calm. Talk to me. He sat across from her, resting his forearms on the table. There's an opportunity, he said carefully, to step back, permanently. It would cost me influence, power. She studied his face. And it would mean choosing a different future, he said. One where my world doesn't keep bleeding into yours. She absorbed that slowly. You're not asking me to decide for you, she said. No, he replied. I'm asking if you see yourself in that future. Maya closed her notebook. She thought of the diner floor, the burn, the fear. She thought of the cafe confrontation, the moment she stood up without shaking. She thought of the scar, quiet, present, no longer painful. I see myself choosing, she said finally. He waited. I see myself in a future where I don't disappear, she continued, where I'm not someone's weakness or leverage, where love doesn't mean surrender. Jean nodded slowly. That's the future I want too. She smiled softly. Then wherever that is, I'll walk there with you. He stood and crossed the room, pulling her gently into his arms. This time, the embrace wasn't careful. It was certain. Months later, Maya stood in front of a mirror adjusting her scrubs before her first clinical shift. Jean watched from the doorway. You look nervous, he observed. She smiled. I am. Good, he said. It means you care. She turned toward him. Do you remember the diner? He nodded. Every day. I used to think that moment broke me, she said. Now I think it revealed me. He stepped closer. You were always strong. She shook her head gently. No, I became strong. That's different. He kissed her forehead. Go save the world. She laughed. I'll start with one patient. As she left the apartment, Maya felt something she hadn't felt before. Not safety, not fearlessness, but balance. She walked down the stairs with steady steps, the city opening up in front of her, and somewhere behind her, Jean watched, not as a shield, not as a shadow, but as a man who had learned that love wasn't about control. It was about standing still long enough to let someone rise. Thank you for listening to They Poured Hot Coffee on a Black Waitress. Not knowing the Korean Mafia boss watching was her man. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support means the world. Until next time, Red Heart,